The reason why Greece has these problems is because of the UK and other Western European countries. We keep rewarding illegal immigrants and mass migration in general, even illegal ones. We keep rewarding them. The days of anyone saying, I can't fight back, those days have gone. You all have to fight back. People are at breaking point. We're a powder keg. We've seen it in Southport. We've seen it in Ballymena. We're seeing it now at the migrant hotel protests. What we're waiting for now is a spark.
And I thought, well, where is it starting? And I'd been to Ballymena and seen what happened over there. I'd been to a protest in Royston in Glasgow. So I'd been down to London and Save the Children thing. So I've been to a few places where we can see the effect on immigration. I've been to Dover and Cali and seen it in front of my own eyes, the numbers and the scale of it coming in. And I just wanted to see what it was like at the other end when they come into Europe to start with. And when they get to Europe, the majority of them want to get here. So they head out to the border, and then it's Cali in the north of France, and try and get here. That was kind of why I wanted to do the trip. And what I thought I would see and what I thought I would document would just be the numbers arriving. But it turned into something totally different, because when I got there, it was dark, it was hell dark, and there was some scary situations I was in. And it made me, I saw the UN. What, mate?
It was a bit of an eye-opener, put it that way.
Aye, so I'd seen the UN under this new thing called Frontex, which has been around for loads of years. I'd just never heard of it, which is basically the UN have got a standing army of 2,500 people, and it's going to be 10,000 before 2027. And they're taking the ownership and the responsibility to control the borders for the countries in the EU, where the border is, and others do their borders outside the EU. And that sounds like a good idea until you actually see what they're doing. And they're telling other countries, if you try and turn boats back, if you try and kick boats back, we will come down on you with sanctions, and we'll control them. And they've now done a partnership with the UNHCR, which is the refugees community, and they've done a cooperation agreement with them, guaranteeing that they will not be doing anything bad to immigrants coming in boats and illegally. So basically, these people are saying, we'll be deciding who comes into your country, and we'll not be stopping immigrants, illegal immigrants and asylum seekers. And you think, it's not going to get better then. And I spoke to a guy that was in the camp, or they were free to go in and out. Oh, that's nonsense, their prisons and they're terrible and they're overcrowded. What a nonsense. I spoke to the first day I arrived, half an hour into my journey, I was driving past. I didn't know. I knew it was close to where I got my hotel. That's why I picked that hotel. I didn't realise it was on the road to it. So half an hour into the trip, I was driving by what was the current asylum camp. And there was folk coming and going all day. And I was like, well, I was expecting a prison. So that kind of threw me a bit, and the trip just got madder. So what's your views on the whole immigration thing, Nick, and why it's happening?
I think we've got 2 points I want to talk about here. The first point is the reason why Greece has these problems is because of the UK and other Western European countries. We keep rewarding illegal immigrants and mass migration in general, even illegal ones. We keep rewarding them. We've advertised to the third world. We're running a TV game, and the game is get to Britain or you're a loser. You may end up losing the game and not getting here, but if you get here and you cross all the obstacles and the sharks in the water and the bandits in the desert area and the traffic, if you can get past all that and you get to British soil, you're the winner. You're a winner, just like you have on the X Factor. In the jungle, get me out of here. You're a winner, and we're going to give you free money, free houses, free everything. And after so many years, you can then invite all your family to come here as well. We've created this problem for ourselves, and countries like Italy and Italy, Spain, and Greece, especially Greece, are taking the brunt of this problem. Now, if we're looking why do we have this problem beyond us advertising that you should come here? Who do you think's making the money out of this? This is a multi-billion industry, illegal immigration and mass migration. I know it doesn't. I'm not saying I know for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of these organizations, these businesses who provide the transport, who provide the hotels, who provide the catering across Europe for illegal immigrants and mass migration, of course, they're funding politicians and projects to enhance their customers. Because that's what these people are. These people are customers. And these individuals who own these companies, who are shareholders of these companies, let's be honest, there's a word for these people. They're traitors. They're traitors to Europe. They're traitors to their own country. All they're looking at is the bottom line, that if I sell my country out a little bit more, I'll get rewarded for that at this moment in time.
Yep.
I spoke to I presumed he was a millionaire. I was invited, but I won't name anybody. I was invited to a friend to an event, and I sat at a table with people. And one of the people at the table is involved in hotels for migrants. And I said to them, "What are you doing?" And he said, "If I don't supply the beds, somebody else will, and it's bad for my business." And it was like, and I didn't get into the conversation because I was a guest at the table, but I felt like saying, don't you think people in Nazi Germany had the same excuse? If I don't build those gas chambers, somebody else will build those gas chambers. And do you not feel like a traitor to your own people? But sometimes, not sometimes, definitely, money buys people's souls. And that's what we've got in Western Europe at the moment. We've sold our souls.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with that.
Let's call it out for what it is. It's treason. So it's not about them making money. It's not about them being unscrupulous businessmen. Let's call that out for what it is. These individuals are engaged in treason against their own people, against their own country. And we need to make sure these individuals know that we know what they're doing, and we will not forget. I was speaking to a guy called Rick Munn. He runs a YouTube channel concentrating on Northern Ireland. And I spoke to him about 6 weeks ago, and he was saying to me, in the loyalist areas of Northern Ireland, because obviously there's peace there in the moment, but that's only been for like 2 decades. There's still dividing lines in Northern Ireland. And he was saying to me, loyalist landlords have had letters saying, we're watching you. And if you fill your houses with immigrants, we're coming for you. Now, in Manchester, that's a bit of a threat. In Northern Ireland, it's more than a threat. And he's saying people are painting eyes on street corners and saying to landlords, we're watching you. Now, I'm not saying we should do that. I'm not saying that's right. I don't want to be arrested. I'm just saying we need to get to the crux of this issue with certain people and say, we're classing your actions as treason, and you need to be aware of that. Don't be a whinger, be a ninja. And what I meant by that was everything you just said. We all need to fight back. Certain people can fight back openly and have their faces out there and go on social media and talk about things and organize protests. Other people can't because they might work for Barclays Bank and they know I'm going to lose my job tomorrow if I say the wrong thing. And I've got a wife, a mortgage and kids, and I can't afford to lose my income. I get that. But those people can still fight back. They've just got to be a ninja. They've got to be a sneaky fucker, and they've got to fight back in a way that fits in with them and their life. And that's what I keep saying to people. The days of anyone saying, I can't fight back, those days have gone. You all have to fight back, but you've got to work out a sensible way for you to push back, to fight back, and start doing something. Otherwise, you're waiting for other people to save you. And there's a word for that, and that's called cowardice. So stop waiting for someone to save you in your life. Start being a contributor to saving your life, but do it in a clever way, a sensible way, where you don't lose your life because of it. And I've been saying this now for 4 or 5 years.
The most frustrating bit for me is women's safety. There's a couple of things that are a concern, and both of them are quite political hot potatoes. One is obviously what we're talking about, immigration and the effect that's got. Now, if we know immigration, we do have bad people in the UK that are bad to women. But when so that's one skill set we're not short of. But when we bring more in that are actually statistically more likely to carry out crimes against women than the people already here, then that's kind of crazy. And the other risk to women is safe spaces, which we kind of had the biggest court in the land tell us that dead simply that, women are women and men are men. So you get the trans issue. And when you talk out, even in the most common sense and logical ways about these topics, the media, the establishment, the government, brandish you far right, right-wing, based, Islamophobic, transphobic, homophobic, all these things. When you're not, you're just actually the same as the majority of people in the UK that have got concerns for women's safety, children's safety, lack of housing, the effect the immigration's got on jobs and the housing market, and all these knock-on effects, the strains in the health service, and all the other things that we need to supply people when our numbers go up all the time. And it's just, that's the most frustrating thing to me. And the penny sort of dropped when I got asked to go to Ballymena. When Alan had contacted me, who I didn't know at the time, and said, look, Craig, the media are giving us a hard time here, not portraying the right story. If I get you information, will you put out the right information about Ballymena? I says, no, I'll do better than that. I'll book a plane just now and to fly out in the morning. And I was standing in front of him 12 hours later. And the penny dropped there. I thought, it doesn't matter really in the UK. I mean, Kevin and I are going up to, there's a protest in Peterhead, for goodness sake, next week, a week on Saturday. And you just think that's bonkers that people in Peterhead are having the same concerns as people in London and Birmingham and Glasgow and Manchester. And Nick and I and Kev came down to the journey. Nick and I both spoke at a protest in Manchester with concerns with children's safety. So it's the same all over the country. And I would suggest that's the majority of the country have the same concerns. But when you talk about them, as Tractor Girl was pointing out there, that she's got a concern that women are terrified. But when you point these things out and explain why they're terrified and what's the biggest effects on it, they're just brandished all these things. And we need to change the narrative. And when we do that, and when I went out to Ballymena, that thing happened because there was 2 cases, maybe 3 actually, of young girls being abused. But what the narrative becomes by the mainstream is, there was a protest and somebody set fire to a wheelie bin. And you think, oh no, that is a story, right? But you're completely ignoring the initial issue. And that's where the narrative is, and that's got to change. And when people in society feel that the establishment are ignoring them because they'll not listen, and they don't have faith that they'll fix it, then the whole thing snowballs. Now, if your government can't get things fixed immediately for you, but you've got a belief that they are trying to fix them, then you'll be less likely to take to the streets. Do you know what else is frightening? I don't know if you are reading these comments as they come in. The amount of people that seem to have thought, well, it's going to end one way. And it's like, we're ready for this. I'm not going to talk about these things, but I don't want my channel taken down and then I can't do any good. That's the only kind of thing I can do for society, is highlight these things. So if I lose my channel, my one benefit's not there. So, but I can understand that. I kind of hope, and I'm crossing my fingers, it doesn't get to these levels, but some of the stuff in the comments, like that, you can understand what people are suggesting here. And it's frightening that society's even considering these things, We shouldn't be here.
I think it's worse than that, Craig. Over the last 18 months, especially the last 6 months, I can smell violence in the air. And as a working class lad off a council estate, I can walk, probably like many people, I can walk into a pub and I know if it's going to kick off or not in that pub, because I've been bred to be able to sense violence. That's how my ancestry managed to survive. So I have that skill, and many people have that skill, and I can sense it now across the country. People are at breaking point. We're a powder keg. We've seen it in Southport. We've seen it in Ballymena. We're seeing it now at the migrant hotel protests. What we're waiting for now is a spark. And I don't want that spark to come. I really don't. Because that spark is going to take us to a very, very dark place. A violent place where so many innocent people will be hurt. And I don't want to go there. But every time we expect the government to change, every time we think they finally get it and they're going to change policy or direction, not this government, I'm talking about over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years, none of them ever do it because they're always interested in the short term. And in the short term, importing more and more people makes sense short term. But in the medium to long term, it's killing the country. And people, because of social media, people realize that now. And people are on a knife's edge. And I spoke to a professor from King's College London called Professor David Betts, Professor of War Studies. So he knows what he's talking about. And he's predicting mass urban violence, civil war in the UK in the next 5 years. He's actually gone further and said there's no way of stopping it, because he says we've gone past the point of no return, and it's going to split along racial lines, religious lines. And the second it kicks off, people who go, I'm not racist, I will never go like that. The second their uncle, sister's murdered, they're going to go, who's my tribe? I'm on their side. So unless the government does a drastic U-turn, which they're not, we're heading for dark times, Craig. We really are heading for dark times.
Well, it's when people have no faith, then, we get frustrated, and frustration can often lead to things that we don't want. But it scares me that the amount of people that are just even considering these things. It just, you think, how did we get here? How did we let it happen? And it's just, I think that
I was going to say, I know how they got there. They got there by trusting politicians over decades and expecting them to do the will of the people. Every politician the last 30 years has told us we're going to reduce mass immigration. And every politician has lied to us, and every government has lied to us. The biggest lie was Boris Johnson. He started allowing millions in. And we've got to a stage where we gave democracy a chance, and we told democracy, this is what we want as a nation. And most of the nation agree with this. But our elites, our leaders, our overlords basically said, no, we don't agree with you. It's going to affect our GDP. It's going to affect me getting a cheap coffee in a corner shop. How am I going to get a cheap gardener, a cheap nanny, a cheap car wash if we stop mass migration? So the answer is no, public. You're not going to get what you want. But in the next election, we'll lie to you again, and we'll make all the same promises, and you'll vote for us again. Because at the end of the day, you people are idiots, and you keep believing the same old crap. That's how we've got to this level of anger.
How do you think we get out of this then, Nick? What do you think the solution? Because I'm like you, I don't think we're voting our way out of this. But at the same time, I don't want to see what we think's coming down the line. I'd much rather try and get through this peacefully and get the nonsense stopped. But as every day goes by, and the more we're getting gaslit, and one of the threads that I put up the other day there, I mean the amount of abuse I took because I was getting called a stalker and a creep and all sorts. You know what I mean? Because I'm filming these hotels, and I'm saying to them, well, so you're quite happy with these people living in your area that you don't even, or do you live in this area? No. Well, why are you commenting then? You don't know what that community's feeling right now. So what do you think the solution is to this? Because I don't know either. I mean, I think that's what the people are actually trying to find a solution out of this.
Yeah, the solution has to be a political solution. Whether it comes this year, next year, or 10 years from now, the solution will be political. So at the moment, most of the country have got their hopes in Reform UK. Now, will Reform UK deliver? I actually think, well, I don't think, I know, they're a pro-migration party. They've told us that, but many people don't listen to politicians. So many people are on the Reform UK bandwagon thinking they're going to do everything I want them to do. And the answer is they're not. Maybe they'll be, well, I know for a fact they're going to be better than Labour and Tories, because you know what? It'd be very hard to be worse than Labour and the Tories over the last 20 years. But if Reform UK let people down in, let's say the elections 2028, 29, if Reform turn out to be more of the same, the anger is going to be horrendous. Now, between now and then, we may get violence. If we get some violence, politicians in the mainstream will change their views, because every politician only wants to be elected again. I've worked with prime ministers. I've worked with MPs and councillors. I know what politicians want. They only want to be elected again. I know what wannabe politicians want. They want to be elected for the first time. Most politicians I've ever worked with, they didn't believe in the policies of their government or their party. They didn't give a shit. They just want to be elected. Now, if we have some violence and politicians go, right, I can see votes in this. If I change my way, my policies, and I start addressing a majority of the white British people's concerns, I might get elected. Then that's going to take several years to build up that momentum. But that really is the only way we stop it. So I don't think we're going to go violent free. I think we're going to suffer some violence. But I just pray to God we have some new leaders coming through, because no one we know of at the moment is going to be the leader we need. We need a leader. We've not even heard of their name yet. It might be a man, a woman, black, white. It doesn't matter. I just want a patriot that comes through the ranks and goes, do you know what? I'm going to be a bit different, because I'm going to put Britain first. And I know that sounds a bit crazy and a bit racist. So I'm a bit crazy, I'm a bit racist, but I'm going to put my people first, the people of this island first. And that's the only way we avoid the mass violence. Are we ever going to get this? I pray to God that we do. I pray to God that we do. Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you about my city, Manchester. Born and bred in Manchester, me. At the last census, 2021, it took a year or 2 years for the figures to come out, but it's based on 2021 figures. My home city now, white English is a minority in my city. Just over a third of the people in my city weren't even born in the UK. That's how bad some of our cities have become, where I'm a minority, which means I should get special treatment. I should get a free bus pass and a cheap car and free taxis and discount at restaurants, because I'm a minority. I'm persecuted, I'm a minority in my city. But beyond that, a third of the residents in my city were not even born in my country. If you'd have told me this 20 years ago, I'd have thought you're a racist nutcase. But it's all come to pass, hasn't it?
Right. It seems to be a lot of people predicted it. And because of the terminology given out by mainstream media and establishment to anybody who had these concerns 60 years ago, people were put off listening to them. It's crazy, isn't it?
I wrote an article about 3 weeks ago about the National Front and the BNP. So the National Front was big in the 70s and the early 80s, and the BNP were big in the 90s. And I wrote an article. I'm not a supporter of the BNP or the National Front, but I wrote an article about them, about what they wanted, their policies, their manifestos. And by the time we got into the 2000s, everything they were campaigning for, so were mainstream politicians. Things Boris Johnson had written about immigration was almost word for word what the BNP wrote 15 years before. Same with the National Front. The National Front and BNP were ahead of the curve. They had the wrong leaders. They had poor PR, but they were right with their messaging in many ways. Not all their messages, but many of their messages, because everything they were saying then is mainstream today. We just didn't listen to them because we had no social media and they were never given a platform to express their views and talk about stuff. They were called Nazis, fascists, racist. And because there was no social media, we all went, oh, okay, they're racist, they're fascists, they're Nazis. And we ignored them. It turned out they were the wrong messengers, but they were right on the message. Before we go, can I just say, we need to understand why all this is happening. And it's all happening because we've developed a culture that's anti-English, anti-British, and basically anti-white.
Yep.
And I'm going to give a plug now because my new book came out a couple of weeks ago, Anglophobia, which technically means...
Nick.
Pardon?
Are you allowed to use that word? I mean, we're allowed Islamophobia and all these other phobias, but we're allowed that. British phobia.
Anglophobia is now a word now. I've released it onto the public, Anglophobia. Other people have been using it for decades. And Anglophobia used to mean hatred or dislike of the English, but it means so much more than that now. It's manifested itself into hatred of the British, hatred of the Anglosphere, hatred of anyone who's white. That's what that word means now. And if you want to understand why we're hated by foreigners and children of immigrants, if you want to understand why British people seem to hate themselves and hate their country and hate their culture, then this is the book for you. You can buy it on Amazon, $12.99. It goes through all that, explains why we're hated, and a lot of it comes down to jealousy and envy. And the self-hate comes down to mental health. That's why so many people in the UK hate themselves and hate the country. We've got a mental health epidemic. And I end the book basically with, we're amazing people. This is an amazing island. We've created a modern world. And if anything, the world owes us a thank you. A thank you for everything we've done to the world. And that's the message we need to carry forward, that we're not apologizing for anything. In fact, we're demanding a thank you off you, because if it wasn't for us, there'd be no vaccines, no medicines, hardly any science, no law and order. We gave, the English gave their language to the world as the world's language. The World Wide Web came from these islands, a jet engine, everything came from here. And we deserve a thank you for that.